Bloody, Thingy Bear. Good evening, good evening, good evening, wonderful people all out there. How are you doing? 14th of April 2021 and 12th of April, we all came out of, is it lockdown? Would you say we're out of lockdown yet? What would you say? I think we're getting there. I'm going to send out positive affirmations as I always do with every single one of the shows that I do. I'm hoping that people are feeling comfortable in their skin, that whatever life has been thrown at them whilst we've been in lockdown, you've tried to cope as best as possible. Um, and not eat yourself out of the crisp bag, which I kind of found myself doing at some point. But then I had to have God as my power and ask Him, "Can you make me stop eating, please?" But hey, welcome to Standing in My Truth, all about you show. And this segment today, which I don't very go live on a Wednesday, but this month is Autism Month, and I couldn't help myself but decide that let's talk about autism. So this show today is called Living with Autism, and I've got three wonderful guests all sitting, waiting in the green room to give their story of living with autism. And when I've spoken to them individually, they it's lovely how they interpretate it. And for me, I know them. I know people who have children with autism, but some people look at it as a stigma, or you feel that you're going to feel sorry for them. That's not what this is about, because there is a beauty with children or adults with autism. And today we're going to tap into three people who identify with that. My first guest I'm going to bring up is the wonderful Marcel Atteen. A lot of some of you will probably know him already as a rapper with the Freestylers. He's also a rapper in his own rights. He's got Buddhist Punks, and he's also worked with the Dub Pistols. But let's take the music away from him and humanize him as an ordinary human being with two beautiful children, a lovely family, and let's get to know him. I'm going to bring Marcel in. Please introducing Marcel Atteen.
Hiya, how you doing?
Hi, Marcel. How are you?
Wow, that was some intro. It felt really strange. It felt really strange to be introduced as a normal human being.
Well, I do that because at the end of the day, and this is I only found this out. We're both musicians,
Yeah, yeah, sure.
and we've worked together, and this is not a favoritism why you are here. You
No,
genuinely
yeah, sure, yeah.
deal with, I remember when I first met you and you actually said, I have a child with autism. I was
Mhm.
like, huh? And so I'm being serious. It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah,
oh, um, and my first reaction. I mean, this was years ago, obviously,
yeah, yeah,
and it's
sure.
oh, the first thing that came to my mind, and I think I've never said that. It was like, oh no, but then I went, no, oh, and because does that make
You know,
sense?
those types of reactions are super cool. I don't remember having any problem with any of those sorts of reactions. You know, the one reaction that isn't a super bad reaction, but you know, the one reaction that I don't like is when they go, "Yeah, but is autism a real thing though, or is it
Oh
just
no,
is
really?
is it just the is it the government, or is it the people that is injecting them with the vaccine that causes the autism? Is it real? Is it real though? Maybe it's not real. I got that. Like,
No, I'm
people have
I'm being
said that.
serious. I'm
Yeah,
actually
yeah.
being serious. You actually get people that say that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm not going to name any names, but you even know some of the people that have said it.
Uh,
You know,
okay, Mars.
but I
I
think like
find
that.
that very strange.
Um, there's so much information out there, and there is information that is perhaps not always correct. So it's a chance to educate, isn't it? When we get those types of reactions.
Okay, just introduce yourself, because we just went straight into it,
Yeah,
because it was
sorry.
like,
Yeah, yeah,
hey,
yeah.
please, Marcel, please introduce yourself to everyone out there, and to and give them why you're here,
Mhm.
please.
Hi, I'm Marcel. I have a child with autism, and I think that's why I'm here. Um, um, it's strange because autism is a spectrum, and you can have some people whose children are perhaps non-verbal, or perhaps they have um, what might be described as strong learning disabilities and things like that. But nowadays, when I'm interacting with my child who has been diagnosed as autistic, I'm not. Maybe subconsciously, but I'm not thinking about autism all the time. I'm just seeing these things as personality traits. And as time has gone on, I see him as a well integrated child. I mean, he goes to a normal school. He does have friends. Plays football. He used to be really into mathematics, but that's been replaced with drill music. Um, and I suppose, I mean, that's why I'm here. Where do you want me to start? What do you want me to say?
Um, I'm going to come back to that because I love the fact that you've literally just sort of like given his journey of like you found out it's like seeing the different changes.
Yeah.
And you're saying that him being your child, and when you did tell people that he had autism, that
Yep. Yep.
you just see him as your child, whereas other people would see probably ask questions about him. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well. I mean, like, as I said, I mean, autism is a spectrum, and I'm not sure that if people met Javi for the first time, they would understand that he was autistic.
Because I didn't.
Um, well, that's the thing. That's the thing. So to understand this particular autism, or this level of or this end of the spectrum of autism, I think we have to go back to the beginning, to when he was to when he was a toddler, because I think that's usually when people get diagnosed with autism.
Yeah.
And
Okay. Stick a pin in that then. I'm going
yeah.
to come to that. Let
Mhm.
me bring, because I've got two wonderful other ladies in the chat, the green room, waiting to come on board, and
Sure.
that way it'd be great to have. I'm going to ask you all the same question, which is the diagnosis. Now, the second lady I'm going to bring on is the wonderful Teanne Andrews. Now, a little background about Teanne. Basically, she is the co-founder of We Are Parable, and I think people should look them up. And do you know what I mean? And don't expect me. She's going to tell you all about herself. So I'm hoping that people are going to go, oh, right, okay, we are parable, while we're doing that. But also, I class her as, um, she's a grown lady, but she's like a child of my heart. I grew up with her around me. And I didn't even realize that, her son, beautiful son, had autism. And when I did, I just couldn't believe how I'm already doing this program. And there it was. And there she was talking about the beauty of her wonderful son. And I couldn't resist to reach out to her and ask her, would she come and share her story? I've got the wonderful Mrs. Teanne Andrews, sorry. Well, she was Brown, she's now Andrews. I'm going to bring her in and introduce her to the clan. Teanne, are you there?
I'm here. Hi,
Hi,
everyone.
Teanne.
Hi.
How are you?
Thank you so
Teanne,
much.
Marcel, you already know. Hi
Hi,
to
Tian. How
everybody.
you doing?
Hi. I'm doing
Teanne,
really
thank you
well.
so
Thank
much.
you so much for inviting me on.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. Teanne, as you heard, I was speaking to Marcel. I'm sure you could hear us in the green room. Please give us a synopsis about yourself and, just a little bit about living with autism and your son's name.
Sure. So, yeah, I'm Tian. As Valerie said, I am a business co-founder of two businesses now. One's We Are
Oh,
Parable,
yes,
which
of
is a
course.
film
Yes.
exhibition company, And the second, which is kind of like a new venture for me, is Shirley Blossoms, which is a floristry entity. Yeah, I have two children. My son, little D, he's the eldest, he's 9. And yeah, Darian has autism, and it's something that we, we kind of knew that he was having difficulties around the toddler age. Like Marcel said, it's quite common when children are quite young within the toddler. With his speech and language, that was initially the first indicators. So around 1.5, 2, when most children developing, the mainstream children are developing babbles where they're saying sounds and words. Darian wasn't babbling as much. And my background is working with children and young people. So I have actually worked with children or been around children who have had special needs. So at first, it was just something that we wanted to get more advice on, really. So we self-referred to a speech and language therapist for the borough that we were living in. There was a very long waiting list, but we wanted just to get a second opinion in terms of, like, is this is there something that we should be concerned about? And at the time, the advice was like, no, he's still developing. We can send you to some speech and language play groups, which we did. We did a lot of kind of play and learning through play groups. And then it wasn't till around 3 or 4 that we then, 4 years old, we then realized that actually there were more kind of social and communication challenges that Darian was experiencing within his new nursery setting, engaging with other children, and how he would interact through play. And then by then we were referred to the local authorities for a kind of provisional kind of assessment. He was assessed on 2 occasions. The first assessment, I think the doctor was a bit inexperienced, to be honest, because it was kind of like, no, we don't see anything, it's fine. And in my true heart of hearts, I knew that there was some additional kind of challenges that he was having, especially listening and reading all the reports from his nursery and speaking to the SENCO at the nursery. I realized that, let's get a second opinion. So we had to wait again for another 18 months to go on the list. And then we saw another doctor, and literally within 10 minutes of seeing Darian, she was just like, yes, like Darian, we would say that Darian is autistic. And for me, up until that point, it was just like, this will make his life slightly easier. He's got a diagnosis. I think that was one of my driving forces. He was starting school around 5, like as children do at 5. And I knew that having a diagnosis in place would unlock the support he would need in school. So for me, it wasn't about just saying, oh, he's autistic, I've got a son that's autistic. Because for me, I see Darian in a different way, in sense of he has his own characteristics. It's characteristic autism. Like he has his own ways of seeing the world. And for me, that's a beautiful thing. But in the world of society, and making sure he accessed the support that he needed, so he wouldn't be excluded by the time he was 6 years old, seen as a naughty kid. We wanted to make sure that he had that formal diagnosis.
Okay, so I'm gonna come back to that then, because that is I knew there was I know there's so much that I'm going to unlock when I come back to you, because as Marcel just said, he's watched his son come up to, the sports and the drill and everything else, and I see him nodding his head. He identifies with you.
I'm nodding my head because I really want to hear more about the diagnosis situation, because the thing is, like, the way we navigated the system in Buckinghamshire, it was really good for us. But my sister has a child, my nephew, who has autism, and I don't like. All right, I'm just going to say it how I want to say it. there is a when you're black and autistic and you have cane roll, you got dreads, and you look a little bit about it. I believe it's harder to get a diagnosis. I believe, and maybe not where we are, but I believe definitely looking at my sister's experience. I believe that you're trying to get the Senko to help, you're trying to get the school to help, you're trying to get people to understand, and they're looking at your kid like, no, it's just some bad man. Like this, it really. Sorry, I'm getting into it. Sorry about that. Sorry, I'm not trying to.
No. We're going to come back to that.
I don't want to revolutionize your podcast with that.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry. It's just what I think. It's just what I think. You know, because obviously because Javi, even though you know he's mixed race, whatever. You know, he's got a very cute look though. He's got like, you know, especially at the time, you know, sort of like blonde hair and green eyes and stuff. And he looks like
he's
but
so cute.
I'm just saying, like with my sister, her experience is at accessing the system has been such a challenge, and it's been so difficult. And if it was done earlier, it would have been so much of a better experience for her, because her son is a great kid. You know, he's got so much to offer, and he's got so much to learn, and he can learn. And you know, I'm sorry, it just really grates me that bit.
No, and we're going to come back to that. Stay that, because I've got Gill, the wonderful Gill Bean, which Siobhan calls her Bean, and I'm going to tap into Siobhan and ask her, why do you call poor Gill Monger Bean? But this is beautiful, and you know, and I love the interaction, which is why we're here to say living with it, because everyone's got different experiences. But Gill, I've got you in the green room. I've got the wonderful Gill Monger, who has got 2 kids, but Gill's story is different because she is the one that identified that her grandson had autism. Yeah, she's not. That it wasn't her you know, exact, you know, her daughter or son. It was she diagnosed her grandson, and I'd love to bring Gill in right now to introduce Jilly Bean. Someone just said, oh, Siobhan just said in the chat room, please, Jilly Bean, or Jelly Bean. I think that's what she means. But I'm going to bring the lovely Gill in. Gill.
Hi.
Hello, my darling.
Good
How
evening.
are you?
Hi, everyone.
Teanne, Gill, Marcel, Gill.
Hiya, Gill.
Hey. This is my happy hand.
So Jilly Bean came about because my younger sister couldn't say Gillian, so she said Jilly Bean. So it became Jilly Bean. So now it's just Bean. So yeah.
Excellent. Gill, I'm sure you've been hearing Teanne's story, and you're hearing Marcel's story. Give a brief synopsis about yourself and how you came about noticing that your grandson, and his name, if you don't mind sharing it, how you identified that he had autism.
So basically, at the moment, he hasn't had a specific diagnosis. He's in the throes of his mum has had appointments taking him to see a paediatrician, etc. So his name's Bruce. He's absolutely amazing, like all children. He's for us and for me, he's special, but he is no different to any other child. It doesn't, because he's non-verbal, so he's bright, but he's slowly picking up the words, and he's coming on. At first it was a little bit of a sticking point, and I think it's really difficult for any parent to adjust to the fact that, hey, do you know what, he's not actually doing this, but maybe if we leave it, he'll pick it up. And I think, you can't go wrong with a wait and see, adopt attitude, because he could just be slow with his speech, etc. But then I think it came to a head when my daughter tried him at a couple of nursery schools, and he didn't settle in 2 or 3 of them. There was an incident where he was frustrated, I think, that he couldn't make the teacher understand what he wanted. So, but then again, all children go through the stage of biting. But one of the nursery nurses at the nursery, it's a school nursery, launched into an attack a verbal attack against my daughter, telling her that he would basically need special treatment, he would need help, he would need to go to a special school, which was it was a terrible verbal attack. She was physically sick because it made her so upset the way, and to be fair, we could have lodged a complaint, etc., but we didn't. We stayed positive. She found a different nursery school and he settled in. He's there now. He absolutely loves it. And he's got friends. He's got one main friend that he goes out with, at the week. They meet up at the weekends. The mums and dads are friends, etc. But I think that his birthday's not till June, so he'll be 5 in June, but he's not starting school till September. He has got portage in place. He is going to a mainstream primary infant school, and he is going to have one-to-one support. So that's all in place. But, he'll do things like, at the moment, he loves Charlie and Lola. That's the thing that I always read with him. He loves books. And, I said to my daughter the other day, name me a child at 4.5 years old that can sit and listen to a little VTech electric desk, that his preference is classical music. So 5 short pieces, okay? Within 2 hours on the way back in the car, I had a total rendition. I honestly pitch perfect of all those tunes. And, that's amazing for a 4.5-year-old to be able to do that. So that's special, isn't it? That's something
Absolutely.
that maybe, that 4.5 years old, he can do that. But another 4.5-year-old wouldn't be able to do that. Yeah. Pitch perfect.
So I'm going to throw this question out to everybody then. And you've all sort of, sort of skimmed around, the diagnosis. When you did get the first diagnosis, and I'm going to send this out to Marcel, Teanne says she noticed, Gill says she noticed. What was it that you noticed, Marcel, that made you know that Javier had autism?
Well, I actually can't remember the first proper diagnosis. Javier's 14. It was a while ago, and like I say, I don't deal with all these problems like they're autism. They're just things that we have to deal with, and and get used to, and because he's, whether autism, no autism, or whatever, he's just a young man that needs to learn in his own way how to get on and live his life, and But
what was the spectrums then? Because you even said that there's different spectrums of autism.
Autism
now,
is a massive.
Your son is older. Yeah, your son is older than Gill's and Teanne's. Give them, tell them how the going, because Jack is 9. Then you've got Bruce, who's 5, but you've got Javi, who's now 14.
Well, I identify a lot with what Gill said about the nursery thing, because this is when the autism word started getting bandied about, and I can remember it very clearly. The first one to identify it was my mum, which is funny because she's also worked for Mind, and she's worked for the NHS. And but to be honest with you, for most of us, when grandma comes along and goes, "Your child's autistic," you just think you're insane. And most people, when the doctor or the grandma or the people of experience come along and say, "Your child is autism," the first thing you do is go, "Rain Man," and you freak out. And you go, nah, it's not true. It's not true. But so when my mum said it, I just thought, you're insane. And then, and then a few months went along, and I remember we managed to get Javi into this Montessori school. It's a really, really lovely little village school, and ideal little village. And I remember arriving there in my nice clothes and a newish car. I remember thinking, right, Javi, this is it. I'm out of the ghetto now. You know, this is gonna be we're living that middle class life now. And I dropped him off, and he ran off into the school, into this idyllic looking child running into an idyllic school. And this particular Montessori school, when you visited the school, all the kids were so perfect. They used to, you know, you'd see one and be sewing and be like, oh, my child is 4 years old, and look, he can sew. And another child would be working with some building kit, and my child is only 5, but look, he's an expert DIY kid. Look at this. And Javi went in, and they were just all there, you know, quietly listening, following instructions, doing all these wonderful things. And you thought, wow, look at all these idyllic children. And then when I come to pick up my kid, right, there's 2 teachers out there come and tell me that your kid's not normal, bloody, 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 blah. He's not interacting well. Because all Javi wanted to do was scream out, he knew all the letters, the numbers, he could read a bit. He couldn't talk, but he could read. You know, you know, he was crazy about numbers, and he didn't want to sit in a chair and do all these things. But me, and the next day, it was literally really difficult to get him into this school. And every day was really painful trying to get my kid to fit into with this idyllic society that, you know, I was trying to impose upon him, and they were trying to impose upon him. And somewhere down the line, instead, we thought we'd take him for one day at the normal school. And at the normal school, it was a much more freer sort of environment. And there were colors, and there was water, and there was sand, and there was books. And if Javi wanted to go in there and just do numbers all day, he could go in there and do numbers all day. If he wanted to play with water, he could play with water. If he wanted to play, he didn't have to sit there, listen to somebody dishing out these instructions. He didn't have to. I mean, I'm sure that's great for other children. Don't get me wrong. I'm not, you know, I'm not knocking that system. It sounds like I am, but I'm not. And then the Montessori school said, you know, we don't have children that go to 2 nurseries. You have to pick one or the other. So, you know, me and Lisa sat Javi down, and I was thinking, you know, and Javi couldn't speak. You know, he could, you know, he could say a few words. You know, he was definitely clearly behind on speaking, and the reading was great. The speaking was not. And I remember I was thinking, Javi, please pick the Montessori school. Please make my middle class dreams come true. And I was going, do you want to go to this school or this school? And he was like, no, that one. no. And it was very clear where he wanted to go. And so we had to send him there. And no, he didn't just jump in there and have loads of friends and stuff, but he wasn't disruptive in any way. He was having fun. He wouldn't speak much, or you know, he could speak a little, but the other kids had relationships and language, and they were doing all this weird stuff. And at playtime, Javi would go outside. For some reason, he was obsessed about Usain Bolt. He used to walk around with this Usain Bolt T-shirt and his world record on it. It was his favorite T-shirt. You know, and he would go into the playground, and he would do this sort of sprinting start, and then run up to the other end of the playground, and then write what he considered to be his time on a chalkboard, and that's what he did for much of the early part. That's what he did every day in the playground. But by the time we got to the end of the nursery, he was talking with kids. He was playing football with other kids, and you know, he was having a chat. I mean, not the same intense relationships that the other kids were having, but he was getting there. You know, he was getting there.
And at least by then you were able to, you know, you'd already had the diagnosis by then, even though he's in the you've already had the diagnosis by then. When you got that diagnosis, and now you've seen what's, you know, you've had your diagnosis, you see him running up and down, etc. You know, what was, you said at the beginning that, you know, you thought, no, he's just a normal child. And I just want you to think about that, because I'm going to come back to you on that. Yeah. Teanne, can you relate to anything that Marcel has just said?
Yeah, definitely. I can relate to a lot. I guess with my experience, we found that the nursery setting, I think, was a really good one, because they had a very good Senko. I guess the special education needs officer was very good at her job, She was very good and very supportive to us as parents. And we decided very early on that actually it's to try and work as closely as we can with the nurseries to see how we can support Darian within the environment that we've placed him in. Because like Marcel was saying, a lot of children on the spectrum, they are very clear in what they want to do in terms of their approach to things. And really it's about us trying to create a learning environment which is good for them. So how can we enable that to make sure that they are learning? So for me, the very early things was, okay, we knew his speech was delayed. We didn't know if he would, gradually become that verbal. We at the time we wasn't sure, but one thing that we wanted to do was that we wanted to encourage as much speech and language as we could. So for me, it was about sitting down with the Senko and say, look, what can we do here? And actually trying to repeat a lot of that at home, and mirroring what they were doing at school, using the visual, they're called PECs, which are the visual aids, using that to communicate. And at one time we had all the PECs literally all over the house. So at the beginning, our son would just be like, da, 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 and he would just point, da, 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 and say things. And for us, it would be trying to encourage the speech, do you want an apple? Do you want an orange? Like encouraging the choices. And it was pretty full on because obviously as he was our first. And a lot of people, when we noticed that he was having kind of like the speech delay, was like, oh, he's a boy. Boys are late with their speech. It's a natural thing. Like I was getting that a lot. Like, a lot of people was like, there's nothing, there's nothing. It's just, it will come. Boys are really late to develop. But
you knew, didn't you? You had that feeling there was not something quite right?
Yeah, I did a bit of research. I think when the speech and language therapist mentioned autism, I was like, to be fair, I knew a little bit about it through like some of the children that could access some of my art sessions, but not as much for me to be able to be like, okay, how are we going to support him in it? And it's not through doing the research I realized that actually there was a lot of characteristics, things that he was doing. For example, his food, he has different types of taste of food. Like Darian only likes dry food. He doesn't like wet food. So anything with a gravy or a ketchup or a soup, he would make noise. Like literally when he was younger, he would just be like, get that away from me. Like, I don't want it. And we couldn't figure it out, like what it was. And then like, as time gone on, we've realized that actually, Darian's quite complex with his foods. There's certain things that he will have. He's very in tune with his routine. He likes to know that things are going to be planned and in place. And we have like visual timetables at home where he can see, well, when actually earlier on when he was like starting school, we did that. Not so much now. But yeah, I mean, there was a lot of things that we kind of put in place to kind of ensure that his life was just a bit easier, really. Because when we realized that actually that when those things weren't in place, that's when we would get the behavioral element coming in. And as he's gotten older, his speech has kind of really it's come a long way, actually. Like when I was looking at some of the videos just the other day, he's speaking a lot, but a lot more, and forming conversations with people now. There are still a few phonics that he's unable to pronounce, so sometimes you're not always able to understand. Like we understand him because we live with him, but if it was someone outside like trying to understand what he said, they most probably wouldn't understand exactly the word or the sentence what he's trying to say. He used to speak quite quickly as well, so it was trying to kind of encourage him to slow down his pace of his speech because he was so quick. Like another part of Darian is that he was very they had diagnosed him with ADHD as well as autism because he was very busy child. Like,
isn't it? Because there's some spectrums of it can pass as ADHD. Is that correct?
Well, I think it's a separate thing, but I think it's quite closely linked. It can be quite closely linked with some children. I mean, autism presents itself in different children all differently. They're all kind of unique in their own right, which again is a wonderful thing. But yeah, I mean, as a child, he was very, very busy. Like I was always out, like always going to the parks, always doing things with him, active, because he just wouldn't stay still. It was quite exhausting at one point because I was just like, I didn't understand, you know. But then once I'd realized that, you know, he needed that kind of stimulus of doing things, you know, I like joined him to do like trampolining. I'd got a trampoline in the back garden, or would always go, he loved his scooter, so he would always going on his scooter and going like far places and stuff like that. So, and again, he's an outdoor child. That's something we noticed really early on. He loved being out in the outdoors, climbing trees, jumping off, no fear, no worries or fear. Like Dad, he would like climb up to a high tree and I'd be like, you're gonna fall, and he wouldn't have that concept of that fear of he's going to hurt himself, or little things like when we were used to like cross the road as well, like the idea of that cars coming, like we'd have to kind of hold him back and kind of almost like, you know, let him understand that this is actually quite dangerous, because that wasn't something that came easy to him. And when we had our second child, we kind of saw the way in which she developed was much quicker, and it's such a beautiful thing because the both of them really, she supports him and he supports her, and it's a really lovely thing to see them kind of, you know, grow up together.
Right, you said, Gill, because I want to come back to the beauty. Remember that. Well, I've just come to the beauty, Teanne, and the beauty will come back to Marcel as well. Gill, any of those that you've heard from Marcel and with Teanne, because I know you're very close, you know, around your grandson, can you relate to any of that? Because you've already seen diagnosis, haven't you? So
yeah, a couple of things. So Teanne, when you said about his eating habits, that's what we noticed with Bruce. He will only eat certain things, but he's very, at the moment, it's almost like you've got to give him confidence to try something new, if you understand. So the other week, well, just before Christmas, I took him to see Father Christmas, and we went for breakfast with Father Christmas, and he wouldn't, we got to the stage where he knew what bread we'd get out of the cupboard. He knew the butter packet. So if you got, say, Anchor out of the fridge and he saw you getting Anchor out, but he likes Lurpak, he knows that that butter's on that bread and he won't eat it because it's not the right one. So I took him to this pub, and we had breakfast, and up come the toast. The butter went on, and there was 2 eggs on his fried breakfast, but they were fried, not boiled. That's what he usually has. And I just dipped the toast in and gave it to him across the table and said, try it. It's egg. And he was like, and then when he realized that, do you know what? Yes, it's the same. He ate his eggs, my egg, another 2 rounds of toast. It doesn't matter that the butter was different on it, but it's almost like it's encouraging in him to, he eats really well, and he eats fruit, he eats yogurts, he eats all stuff that's good for you anyway. But I think when you're trying him with something new, you've almost got to say, it's fine to have this, it's really okay, and then he'll have a go and he'll try it. And I think sometimes I think sometimes he surprises himself, to be honest.
One of the things that your daughter noticed it, because remember, you know, your daughter, you know, is the one that, you know, you're seeing all of this happens.
Yeah.
What are the things that your daughter shares with you that, you know,
she's brilliant?
Oh, really?
Yeah, she is brilliant. She was seriously ill when she was expecting Bruce. She's never been ill in her life, but when she fell pregnant with Bruce, she had what we thought was severe morning sickness, but she ended up being dehydrated, and she was diagnosed with Graves' condition, which affects the thyroid drastically. And she had to have a team look after her while she was expecting Bruce. She's since She was 2 years after having it. They were trying to get her thyroid under control. So she's had a complete thyroidectomy, so she's had that removed. It's caused problems with her eyes as well, so she's under Southampton Hospital with her eyes. But she's really been through it. You know, when the calcium level from the thyroid drops, she can have palpitations in her face, and it is a very serious condition. So she's had that to contend with, as well as being, and that is a tiring thing to have as well. But she, you know, okay, she's my daughter. And it was almost a conversation I had in a text message today. I said to her, you know, you are an amazing mum. You really are an amazing mum. And because if you was a crap mum, I'd be telling you you was a crap mum, but you are brilliant. And she shares stuff with me. She talks to me about stuff, and yeah, I'm lucky. I have him for a sleepover on a Friday night, and I look after him on a Saturday. And out of lockdown, we go swimming twice on a Saturday together. We're lucky we live near the beach. We do all sorts of things together. And, you know, I'm lucky, I'm really lucky that I have such a close relationship with him. But from the word go, when I started to look after him and he had sleepovers, I did everything that she asked me to do and followed it by the book. And there's nothing you know, if she said to me, can you do this for him, mum, or can you do that for him? I would do it for him because I respect her. But I think it's a hard job understanding the condition, wherever they are on the spectrum, because it's such a big spectrum and they're all different. But I find it is it's I think it's hard for her, and I want to support her. And I just think that, like I said before, I think they're all special in their own way. They've got everything the same as everybody else to give. It's just the understanding that you bring to the situation. Like you said before, with his words, he's becoming more verbal now, but you have to listen really hard because it's babble, 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 and then the couple of words, and then a few more babbles. But as long as you're listening and you're understanding, you know, the fact that if he doesn't want to go out, he can't tell you he doesn't want to go out, but he knows he doesn't want to go out. So if you say to him now, go and get your trainers, and he doesn't go and get them, it's not because he's being naughty. It's his way of telling you, no, do you know what? I'm contented here. I don't want to go out. And I think that a massive part of this is understanding. I really do. And I'm new to it. I really am.
I love that because I have Lulu Hyde in the chat room. Not in the chat room. She's actually in the chat room, and she's just poured out literally. She's just said grandparents are the best support. Now,
thank you for that. Thank you.
Yeah. She did say that. She says,
yeah, they really are.
She says she feels actually quite emotional listening to all of you. Because I don't know if you can read the comments, guys. I don't know if you can see.
Yeah, I can see them.
Yeah, and she goes, you know, her son is 24. Because I was going to try and get her to jump on as well. She said her son's 24. No one's listened to her, and she feels like, you know, that all of you are telling her story. And, you know, at the age of 24, 8 months ago, her son only just got diagnosed.
Valerie,
what was you going to say? Please let me know.
This is why I was getting so heated when we're talking about getting a diagnosis. It's different from school to school, borough to borough, and parent to parent. Because, like I said earlier, because I think what she wrote, Lulu Hyde, I think what she wrote, she said her son wasn't diagnosed until he was like 24.
Yeah, no, so he's 24. Yeah, exactly. So he's 24 now. And 8 months ago, he was diagnosed.
Listen, this is disgusting. It's disgusting. Yeah. It's absolutely really bad. And there's several reasons why it happens. And it's because autism looks like personality traits. And it is personality traits. But people don't understand that you can't control those personalities, or that it takes time to understand these personality traits and interact with these personality traits. So like I said, in Buckinghamshire, you know, we've received the absolute best from the borough of Buckinghamshire. But what I noticed, because I used to go to a lot of autism groups and stuff like that, with a lot of autistic children, maybe their mum or their dad might be autistic too, but they might not be diagnosed. So the way that they're communicating with the system might not be as good. Obviously, you know, Valerie, you know me for a long time. I'm quite a quirky guy. I wouldn't say I was. I wouldn't probably not be diagnosed as autistic, but I'm quite quirky. And then my mum, she's got a lot of strange behaviors. Then my uncle and my other, both are. Oh wow, it's all over. It's all over my family in one shape, in one way or another. But if it's just you, imagine you're a single parent, or you don't know that perhaps you don't interact with society that well. Even in Buckinghamshire, where they have a lot of support for autistic people, you're going to struggle with getting support for your child. And I noticed it.
You're noticing it.
I noticed it, yeah.
Another chat room is saying that Blue Diamond, so because we're on 4 platforms, by the way.
And I believe when Lulu says that one's worth their crap, and that's and you know why that's really even worse. It's even worse because when you're living with autism, which I don't, but when you're living with autism in an inner city area, it's actually more difficult to navigate that autism because a lot of people. A lot of autistic people, they have what we call sensory disorders. So crowds, noise, it could be anything. Yeah. You know, my nephew freaks out when he smells cheese crisps.
Really?
He ran into he'd be acting completely normal, like a normal human being. This is what my sister says, smelt cheese crisps, ran into the road and he got knocked over to get away from the crisps. Right, so you've got to imagine in the countryside, these things as you're growing up, or maybe just a quieter area, these things as you're growing up are going to be, and you're autistic, it's going to be a little bit easier to navigate. When I read about it, I didn't really understand, you know, but it does make sense. And when you're in a city area, there are more personalities, there are more characters to deal with, there are more noises, there are more lights, there's just more strangeness, there's more things that you've got to get your head around.
It's funny you should say that because we're on 3 different platforms. So you've gone Standing in My Truth, you're on my page, and there's YouTube. So I'm trying to navigate all the chats because it doesn't seem to come in one place.
I don't know what's happened here, but I can't see everyone. It's just sort of changed.
Oh no, because I've just moved you into.
All right. Sorry.
I made you like.
Sorry.
Oh, bless you.
I'm sorry. But later on, I also want to talk about the food thing because we can't skip past that.
All right. So did you see that someone else said it is very OCD and it's like everything separates food wise, especially. So I'm going to throw that out there because we started talking about it. And we'll come back to you, Lulu, definitely. Marina's also in the chat room. She's got thumbs up as well. I guess that they're identifying with, with the things that you guys are saying about the autism. But let's throw that in there. We spoke about sensory. There's food. We've talked about the babble. Teanne, you're nodding your head in there. Tell me why you're nodding.
Just because I relate to a lot of what Marcel was saying around the sound. I mean, for a long time, we hadn't realised that actually Darian's very sensitive to loud noise. Just would go out in different environments and his behaviour would change. And we didn't know why. We just didn't know why. And simple thing as air defenders changed the game. A good set of air defenders completely changed the game for us in the sense that we could go out as a family to certain environments and he would be okay because the noise would be cancelled down a bit. And we went to carnival and for him it was an amazing thing because he loved the visual impact of the carnival. but the noise would have been too much, and having the headphones really kind of, or the air defenders really helped him, and actually us planning that trip as well. So I think, you know, there is a lot of things around the sensory part. Darian is chews as well, so he has something called a chew ring, which is what we've tried to replace instead of him chewing his clothes, because he would chew like the collars of his clothing, and like on his jumpers, especially when he started school. And I think it was linked to maybe him being anxious about that setting of being in a new setting. We noticed that he would chew his jumpers a lot, and to the point where there were holes like in his jumpers, and it was really, they were all stretched out and stuff. And I was like looking online, and it's something that, you know, some children do, you know, they have that, they need to have that kind of idea of chewing and biting as part of the sensory. So we bought, he's got quite a few of them now, all different kind of designs and colors, and he matches them with his, like, what he wants to wear. And he has a chew ring, and we just take it out with him now. So it's almost like having, almost like being prepared. And I think that was the biggest thing, having all of the things that he needs to be able to see him through a day. So a chew ring, air defenders, you know, a visual timetable when he's at school, just like little things for us, which has kind of been like huge game changers. So yeah, I guess, you know, the whole sensory part is an area which we're still kind of exploring as well. But there are, you know, interventions or tools that you can, you know, try. I don't know if they will all work, but you could try them and see if they kind of if they would kind of aid and help a little bit better. And, you know, the chew rings that Darian, like, it's like a fun thing for him now. Like he only uses them, I see, when he feels like he needs them, and that's totally fine. And as he's gotten older, he's asked for his air defenders, so he would be just like, you know, mummy, I need them, or he would just go and get them and put them on, and that's fine. We just respect the fact that, you know, he needs his quiet place, he needs his quiet surroundings. And someone's also put in the chat about like their own space. Yeah, that's Darian. He likes own space, and we kind of understand that sometimes that he just wants to be left alone. And it's something that we've had to navigate with our youngest daughter. Like, she would want to play all the time, and like sometimes we've had to kind of encourage that. It's nice to have your own space. It's nice to have your own space to do something that you want to do. So yeah, I totally get the sensory element there.
Guys, one thing I would say, Val, is that my son lives in London, so with lockdown and stuff, we haven't seen him quite that often. But he said something really interesting to me. He the last time he was down visiting, he said, when Bruce comes round, he said, I don't get up and make a beeline for him and say hi and pick him up and make a fuss of him. And when he starts playing, I don't go over there and you know, interact with him. I leave him be, because I just think that, and my son doesn't have children, but he said, I just feel that he will come to me and want to play when he's ready. And the last time he came down, exactly that happened. He just was sitting on the sofa, and Bruce walked in, and then after about 10 minutes, he just walked over to him and went and gave my son a big hug, and then got hold of his hand and pulled him over to go and play with his stuff. So what I'm trying to say is I get that they, you know, like, Bruce is the same as most kids, likes to go out, likes to play, likes to do stuff. And we've got, outside of lockdown, we've got plenty of stuff going on down here. But he also does like his quiet space. He's just happy, you know, sitting on the sofa on a Saturday, having his sandwich and his crisps, watching a film, and then he'll get up when he's ready. But he doesn't always have that urge to want to go out. He doesn't have to be out somewhere to enjoy himself. He really likes his, like you said, he really likes and seems to appreciate being left alone and having his own time.
Got you. Diamond, as I said, in another chat room. So as I said, I'm navigating three different platforms, but they all can see you. And Blue, thank you for tuning in. I hope you are well, my darling. She says, my child had a tantrum at 2 years old. I picked her up the colours, tied up, and she burst into tears, saying, "Mummy, that's wrong." And she put them back in the exact same order they were supposed to be, and she does it all the time. Now, I don't know if you're saying that. I don't know if you're saying that, or you're wondering, is that an autistic sign? Please let us know if you're listening, Blue, because you know if that is what you're saying to us, or is you already had the diagnosis. But that's what she's saying. So I guess you guys have laughed because you can relate to it. Marcel, what was you going to say here? Chime in, please.
It would be ridiculous to even hint at any type of diagnosis online from a sentence that somebody said. But I think we all kind of identify with sort of similar behaviors to that. And many autistic children require order.
Yeah.
And so from there, I need to just sort of like go back to the eating thing.
Please do.
Because that's part of this order.
Yeah.
So again, I mean, Harry still has dry granola for breakfast now. Do you know what I mean? That's just what you want to eat. I don't care. Like, if that's what you want to eat, you don't want to have milk. Milk's nasty anyway. I mean,
bless you.
But we do want them to have enough food groups. Now, how it worked for us, it was very, very, very difficult in the beginning. But if they are going to be more communicative, and if they are going to talk more, and in my case, that was the case, and you're going to have to do this with all things. I mean, I think this is one thing that is pretty uniform around autism. But without, it's a spectrum, so it's always different. Don't get me wrong. But one of the things that is always kind of the same is that child will probably need preparing for new experiences. So what you're not gonna do is you're gonna say, you know what? It's time in these new food groups, yeah? Listen, instead of bacon, it's a burger. And then you walk into the house, yo, it's not bacon today, it's burger. You're not gonna do that. That's not gonna work. What you're gonna do instead is you're gonna say the day before, if you're at that level of communication, you're gonna say the day before, say, son, instead of bacon tomorrow, it's gonna be a burger. Or we can transfer that. In the end, Javi ended up with lots of food groups. It's fine. He's still a weird eater to me, but it's his choice. He can eat what he wants. If I want him to try something different tomorrow, even at 14, I'm going to say, Javi, tomorrow, I really want you to try. Do I have to eat? I really want you to try this thing. And he go, all right, okay, it's going to be at 5 o'clock. At 5 o'clock, we're going to be eating so-and-so food. He's probably going to at least try it. And it's going to have to be pretty disgusting for him not to eat it, right? But then this is about order. So now it's about preparing them for new experiences. Autistic people, they like routine, which is great. But obviously, lots of children like routine, right? Routine. If we read any child self-help thing, which I'm sure all autistic parents have done, their child isn't behaving correctly. So we're going to read this self-help thing, and it's going to talk about order. It's going to talk about order and discipline and having things at the right time. Well, autistic kids really need that. They really need that. So if you're going to do something different, like you're not going to go to the same park, or you're going to go and visit grandma or granddad, or go and do something different, give them some warning. Let them know. Even now at age 14, honestly, even at age 14, if I want to get Harry to do something, I'm going to tell him early. I'm not just going to slap some new food down on the table. That's not going to work. That's not going to happen. I'm not going to slap a new experience like going to a new, going on holiday, going to a new country, going to a hotel or something like that. I'm not going to slap that down now unless I have to. And if I have to, we're going to beef over it, but I have to do it, so we're going to have this beef. But if I don't want this beef, what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell him early. You tell him early, and that's what you do with autistic people, because autistic people, they need to process what's going to happen, what's going to go on. Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that. Some human, I need that. I mean, maybe some people diagnose me as autistic. I don't know, but I need that. Valerie, do you remember when we used to travel all the time? I need to eat at the same prayer manger at the airport. I need my window seat. I need my own room that is like, I need all these things to be able to get through this experience. I need all the same things. That's what I need. Right? And other people don't understand that. They just think I'm being an artist. Do you know what I mean? I don't care about being an artist. You know that. Like, but I need these things to be comfortable, and with all things, all different experiences, including food or play. Again, I needed to touch upon the fact that you said that your son liked to play outside all the time.
Yeah, that's what Gill was saying. Yeah. And Teanne was saying they like to play outside. Yeah.
So before even any diagnosis, Javi used to do this all the time. In the end, like he used to be banging on the door to get out. In the end, we had a garden. In the end, I bought him a suit, left the door open. I let him go out anytime he wanted. And even if it was raining, because he had the hood and everything, even if it was raining or whatever, I'm just like, that's what he wants to do. I don't care. My dad came around and he looked, what are you doing? What there was this baby crawling around in the garden with a full suit, but that's what he wanted to do. And that's what made him comfortable. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I was fine with it. So I don't, I'm not attached to normality anyway. Everything doesn't have to be normal anyway. So I don't care about being normal, but I do care about the kids being, having a good experience and being happy and finding their own meaning out of life or their own happiness or their own enjoyment.
Well, Blue is, again, Blue said it, as I said, you can't see what she's saying down there. I'll come to Louise's as well. I'm not sure where I've got that feedback from. But yeah, nice to see you, Trinity. I can see you on the other chat room as well. Blue is saying, is that a sign? So, when I read out her story just a while ago, picking up the colours and tidying them up, and she burst into tears and putting them into the same exact order. Do you think, I mean, you guys you're expert at it, but living with it, and this is what this show's about, is living with it. How are you coping? Let's take away, because I don't know if you can tell her if that's a sign. What would you say to Blue in the chat room? Any one of you can chime in here. What would you say to Blue in the chat room who thinks that maybe her child might be autistic, and only on the basis that she's saying that she has to have everything exact? What would you tell her?
I mean, I can respond if you want.
I would say
I want to hear from all of you.
Yeah, cool. No, you go first, yeah. You go.
I mean, I would say to start making a note of these things that she's doing, her behaviors, because I think you could try and seek to get kind of additional kind of support in terms of an assessment, but I think it'd be good to kind of start kind of having a little diary of things that she does, because for me, I noticed loads of little different things, and now looking back, I like piecing them all together, I've realized that, actually it was a bigger, I could see kind of like a bigger picture forming about Darian being autistic. But at the time it was just like, he doesn't like this kind of food. We got to make sure that, we prepare him for this. But, he was so young then. But I would say definitely, try and record those somehow. Different kind of behavior.
I think her daughter, from what Blue is saying, is only, my child that's 2 years old. I don't know how old her child is now. Blue, if you're still there, if you want to sort of chime in and see what where you're at. Louise has come back in and said that she's noticed that, as you can all read what she's saying. And Louise, I was trying to send you the link to see if you wanted to jump in, but let's see. Blue, I've not had a diagnosis. And Trinity also says she gets what we're talking about. I have just learned to live with it, as she's now 13. No doctor or school support. Wow.
Hard. That's tough.
That must be very tough.
Yeah.
This is what I'm saying.
From me.
This is what I'm saying about getting diagnosis. They don't want to die. You know what? They don't. Sorry, conspiracy theory. They don't want to diagnose you because they want to spend the money.
Okay.
They want to call you naughty.
I wouldn't say that, but I'm going to ask this question. So, Blue, Have you, the question I'm going to throw to Blue, and I see what she comes back and says to you lot, because you can't see that this chat room is, you know, she's not had any diagnosis, and no doctor or school support. Would you say to her, even though that her child is now 13 and there is difficulties because she's just coping with it, do you think that she should go and get a diagnosis?
Yeah, because any support you can get is a good thing. And the thing about the support, because you know me, I'm a very skeptical person.
Yeah.
But the work that they did with Javier in nursery, you know, they had to go and get a support. They had to pay somebody to work with him for a whole. Well, it would have been 2 years. Mr. Abdul, I still see him around the town. Really nice guy, but they have to pay for that. And the thing about it is, if he just plays with Javier, if he just speaks to Javier in the playground, then everyone's going to notice that Javier is different. So he can't do that. So now he has to go into every classroom, into playground, and he has to play with all the children, so that the one child isn't separated from the rest. So it doesn't look like this child is super different. And then when they go from nursery and they go to junior school, the child might need help with communication with other children. So they're going to have to pay a worker to go in there and not just work with your child. They have to form groups of children to work with them. And this work really, I mean, in my scenario, really helped loads. It helped Javier in his ability with forming relationships with other children. And it's very important, but it's very costly.
Right. So you're saying that some people, if you've got the money to have that kind of support, it's great. Not everybody's got that. Question.
Not every council, not every borough wants to pay that out.
And this is what I think we're getting to find here. So Teanne's been very fortunate; she's got great support. Also with Gill, but 3 people so far. There's a question that was thrown in the group, which is: was the autism from birth? He's asking, or after any vaccinations? So can anyone go on, Marcel?
I listen. There is no just people, if they're worried about vaccinations giving their children autism, what they need to do, if they're really genuinely worried, go and read. There is no link between vaccination and autism.
And also, I would point out, I'm not an expert, but I would point out that several doctors have said, and I work for the NHS as well, that you can't make a diagnosis of autism at birth. So you wouldn't know.
No.
You wouldn't know, would you, if your child was born with autism and then they had vaccinations that caused it? You absolutely, it can't be diagnosed at birth.
No, it can't be diagnosed at birth because
it's a neurological lifelong condition.
Yeah.
You're
not gonna see the traits until the child starts developing to such a level that you can actually say, well, I think they're, you know, maybe on the spectrum, or, you know, they need help with certain things, or there's certain traits. So yeah, I absolutely don't. I'm not an expert, as I say, but I don't think you can actually diagnose that at birth.
It's impossible to diagnose at birth, and you're not going to understand autism until you start interacting, until the child is supposed to be speaking and forming relationships, because that's what autism is about. It's about how you communicate and how you interact. So at the time that you first start communicating and interacting is just so happens to be the time when you have you start having vaccinations, and so it's just correlatory. There is no evidence whatsoever. And Valerie, I did say to you at the very beginning, there is a whole host of people. They really annoy me, these people, because they don't read. It's true. I just read. Because they have so much to say, but they don't read about it. So how have you got something to say, but you don't want to read about it?
Yeah, you've got to do your homework. Blue has come back again with another, what she says, everything needs to be, to her child, everything needs to be explained over and over until she's comfortable with it. So, I think Blue, as you can hear, I've put your question out there, not question, you're telling us what's happening. Me personally, even though I don't, and Teanne has just nodded in full agreement. There is some, that there is something that I classify as autism. So Blue, I would listen to these. These are the experts, the three people right here in this room. I have had to use online resources to help understand as I work in a nursery and a preschool, and that's what she's saying, and that's how she noticed the difference. And so her child is 13. So I don't know if she should still go and get the the tests now at 13. Would you say just tell me, guys, if that's the advice you put to her?
I definitely would recommend doing the test, because this is a lifelong condition. This isn't something that's just going to go away in a couple of years, and it's about making it easier for your child to navigate society. I mean, a lot of people was like, why do you want to label your child with autism? And for me as a parent, it's not about labeling my child, it's about unlocking the financial resources that they deserve. It's about unlocking the educational resources that they deserve. And also it's about, just being able to know that actually that is what challenges the child has, young person has, so you're able to better parent them. Like, if I didn't get that diagnosis, I don't think I would be able to prepare myself in a way to understand it, but also to put everything in place, because I'd be second guessing myself. Is it autism? Is it this? Is it that? And I think having something formally on paper, which actually gives schools, as your young person will be going to secondary school or in secondary school, it makes the school accountable. It makes colleges accountable. They have to put certain things in place to make sure that, that young person is accessing the support. And if, sadly, in this world, if they haven't got that,
support network, isn't it?
Educational healthcare plan, educational healthcare plan in place, it makes life quite difficult for education, I think. And I think, Darian's in primary school at the moment, and he'll be going to secondary school in a couple of years. And, having that in place, gives me confidence that we'll be able to kind of hold the school accountable to wherever he goes, because it is a statutory document, the educational healthcare plan. And what you put in it, it is about, trying to make sure that the school is having those resources, because they get financial money from the government to support your child. So the school would be more inclined to support your child if they're getting the finances through. And that's just how it is, sadly. It's all about money. And obviously, once they have a formal diagnosis, you're able to access a disability living allowance. Now, for me, it wasn't about, oh, we're going to get this money in for Darren. It was about, okay, how can we use this to support him? So shall we give him extra speech and language classes? He loves to play the trombone. Shall we get him a professional tutor? It's using that money to enrich his life and enrich his, learning as well. So I think, it might be a long battle to get it. And I'm not saying it's easy. I mean, we had 8 when Darian started primary school. We had 8 schools say no to Darian in terms of they couldn't take him in.
Oh, wow.
No, 8 schools, 8 local schools, to get him into the school that we wanted to go to. And I had to go.
It makes me so angry.
Had to constantly fight. Yeah, we had to fight. And he goes to a mainstream school, but it's got an ASD provision. And there are a lot of schools that have ASD resource provision. And I would say they are really good, because the ASD resource provisions there to support the child in the mainstream setting. And when things are getting a bit too much for the child, then they can go out to the resource provision. And that's worked for us. And we're looking at, secondary schools that have that similar kind of thing. But, he wouldn't be able to go to get a place in a lot of the secondary schools if he didn't have that educational healthcare plan in place to say that he has got a registered disability. I rarely use the word disability.
No, I don't use the
because
word disability.
I rarely use it, but only when I need to use it on paperwork. Do you know, it's just about playing the game to make sure that your child gets the support they need. It's exhausting, I'm not gonna lie, but you have to have. Yeah, we had 8 schools say they didn't have the resources in place for him. That and he had a plan, remember, as well. But in the end, you know, we fought hard, and we got our number one preferred school in the end. But that was a long battle with the local authority, going back and forth and saying, you know, we had to go to a thing called a panel, where you have to literally go up in front of a few people and almost kind of, it's like talk about why you want your child to go to this certain school. And it's like, why do we have to do that? But again, it's part of the system. Yeah,
it's like you have to jump through hoops. You're jumping through hoops for your child so that they can follow that health plan. That is absolutely crackers. And what I am learning from all of you today is this, especially, you know, from Blue, yourself, and there's a lot of tears and sad faces in one of the other chat rooms. But what I'm learning, and Lou, I wish I was able to have got you onto the show today, because Louise is absolutely saying that, you know, her son got kicked out of school only purely because they just did not realize he had autism. Do you know what I mean? She's had to endure where nobody understood him, nobody could get it. So as soon as he was acting up, he was thrown out of school, and then he, you know, and when he's acting up again, he gets arrested. At 13, he's already been arrested, and nobody has worked out that he has autism. You know, and he's been, you know, and Louise, I hope you don't mind me saying this, because you've been saying it in the store, you know, in the chat rooms, in and out of jails. It's only as he's got, and you know, I've heard Louise say, "Oh, Josh again," and sometimes I genuinely kept feeling sorry for her. As a mother, she has stuck by him, and I'm really glad that she didn't give up on him. And at 24, you're now finding out what is really wrong with your son. But he's had to endure jail upon jail time, upon being in the wrong crowd, just being with people that he's probably not done anything wrong, but just being with certain people has tagged him. And so he's just been forgotten.
Yeah. This is why diagnosis is so important.
Isn't it the thing that, you know, like even if you go back years and years and years, or not so many years, autism wasn't identified as being nothing else but naughty behaviour. Kids not doing what they were told. It's only more recently that this has like come to the forefront, and that, you know, authorities and health authorities are taking more of an interest in all of this, because, you know, you talk to older people, like me as a grandparent, I talk to older people, and, you know, they say, oh, do you know what? I actually think that quite possibly my brother had autism, because he was just always classed as naughty, kicked out of school. And it's, like I say, only just more in the recent years, it's actually become, this is what a person is suffering from, or this is what a person is developing with, and this is how we need to support them, rather than just throwing them by the wayside. And they're naughty, they won't behave, they won't conform, that they just want to do what they want to do. That, I think, that's, it's, you know, more people are being identified as having, wherever they are on the spectrum. But before, because of this ignorance on it, which is really what it is, you were just kind of thrown by the wayside, and nothing was kind of, you know, oh, he's just naughty. There's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there.
I think we've got a long way to go. Honestly, I really do. I think we've got miles to go.
Yes, I'm so glad that we're having this conversation, because people tend to think that, oh, this month is Autism Month. Last month it was, International Women's Day, or blah, blah, blah. So they're only going to speak about that subject for that month, and then you're forgotten. And I think that is just absolute tosh. It is tripe. It is something that needs to be made aware out there. And Marcel, that I'm not going to just jump on a subject for the
Yeah,
sake
sure.
of the subject. I believe that people need to stop it's like glorifying mental health. Everybody all of a sudden is glorifying, oh, we've got mental health, and that's the issue. And no one's addressing that trauma brings mental health, which now is what this is what I'm going to come into right here and now. We've spoken. I want to know from all three of you separately, what is the beauty of having a child with autism? I have to ask that question, because I'm sorry, it is not a stigma, and I said this from the outset. It's not a stigma. Let people know the beauty of having a child with autism, please.
Sorry, Valerie, just to be controversial,
Go for it.
I have a
Because you
little bit
always
of
are, and I love that.
sorry.
No, but that's how it works. This is why you're here.
I have a bit of issue with this the beauty in autism. Obviously there's a beauty in different personalities, but I think when we talk about autism specifically, there are so many stories, because many autistic people, there's loads of them that have super talents. I think we just heard from Gill that her grandson could memorize loads of music and reproduce it, because he's got a super strong memory, right? Just so happens that at Val, you would have heard before that that my son,
he's amazing.
He can be a bit, but like, he's got a very powerful memory, and it really helped him in maths. And in the sort of like the earlier years before maths was replaced with drill music, he was really good at maths competitions. We all know of the autistic people that are wonderful with maths and have a very special talent. But the problem is that there is so many autistic people that don't have a so-called special talent. But to me, those people are still they're still super special, because when I used to hang out with them, as a family, we used to all hang out with the autistic society, and they used to go to the zoo or go to the bowling or whatever, and lots of children there didn't have some special autistic talent, but they were still really cool kids. I used to, because some of them were older than my child, I wanted to listen in, because I thought that maybe my child might behave like them, when they're older. So I wanted to know what they were thinking about, what they were doing, how they talked about relationships, how they talked about friendships and stuff like that. But to be honest, it was just a massive load of wonderful diversity, just like being a human is sort of full of diverse features. It's autism to me. I mean, I don't know the technical terms or whatever, but it's not a disease. It's personality traits that don't conform with the normal personality traits that we're expecting. And how do we live with those personality traits? And we should be looking at at just all children, whatever disability, what whether it's autism or Down syndrome or whatever. We're so separated. The one thing I really liked about autism, because now, unfortunately, we just because the kids are doing so much more different things in what is described as normal society, like playing football 4 or 5 times a week or something like that, we don't hang out with all the other autistic children like we did before. But one of the things that I really enjoyed about it was being a part of the other part of society, because we're separated. We're separated from old people. We're separated from the disabled. We're separated from deaf people and blind people. We're not all, we're sort of like herding into our little streams of people. But actually, the real beauty in being a human is hanging out with all the humans who have the different spectrums. I'm sure that was a very long, weird diatribe, but in there somewhere was something worth listening to, perhaps. Do you know what I mean?
I'm sorry he did that. I want to hear, Teanne, what's the beauty for you? What's the beauty?
Me, yeah.
I guess the beauty for me is
sorry. Yeah. No, go on, you go. I'll wait.
Yeah.
Delay on my side. So yeah, no, go ahead.
I think it's just because I look at him like he's unique. To me, he's unique. He's different to what my two children were, but not in a bad way. He's got so much there that you can build on, you can support, and isn't a life just about being it's your individuality anyway. Wouldn't anybody want to be not herded into a group? They would want to be their own individual person.
Absolutely.
So I think that a lot of this is respecting what those people or children or whoever it is, respecting their arts, their uniqueness, their individuality, which is what we would ask from anybody, to be quite honest.
Yeah. I totally, and you mirror exactly what Marcel was saying. Teanne, what the beauty? Tell me what's the beauty? I've got one more question to ask everyone before we bow out.
I think
So,
the
what's
beauty
your
of it
beauty,
is
Teanne?
that I think the beauty of it is that he sees the world differently. And I'm going to quote Dr. Temple Grandin's an author that I read read quite a lot of her books. And she says that the world needs to have all different kinds of minds in it. And I really, think that's quite profound. She's an autistic, phenomenal woman, Dr. Temple Grandin, and when I read that quote, I just thought, you know what? Yeah, like how boring would it be if we all saw the things the same way, if we all thought the same way? Like
Yeah.
Darian, like when he says like certain things, like every day I'm kind of surprised by it because I didn't see it. I'm like, oh, like, and I think that's a really good thing, like in terms of, innovation, in terms of creativity, like that is, I think, a skill that and something that I think is a wonderful thing. And it could be just part of Darian, or it could be part of his autism. But for me, sometimes I don't know where the autism ends or where Darian begins. It's just Darian.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. It's like, especially when you're disciplining them, you're like, oh, is that just because Darian as a child, or a normal child doing something wrong, or is that because it's the autism that's enabling? And for me, I've just stopped doing that. It's just like, this is Darian, and there's things that he always surprises us with, and stuff that he spots that we just didn't spot. And I think that is just like a real profound thing, and it's something that we're trying to nurture in him as well, like because he's starting to realize that he's different at school. He's starting to understand that he
Has he
is
said
slightly
that to you?
different, like
Has
he
he
doesn't
mentioned that
read at the
before?
different reading space.
Has he ever said that to you?
Yeah,
Has
he
any of your
has. Yeah,
children
he
said
has.
that?
Yeah, yeah, he said that to us before. Recently, in the last year or a couple year or so, I'd say he would
Right.
say, I'm not on the stage reading as some of the others in my class. I feel I don't do. He compares himself a lot to the other children, and we just say to him, you know what, Darian, you are you, and there's some things that you can do that other children can't do,
Can't
and
do. That's
that
right.
is a beautiful thing.
I like that.
So
I
yeah,
like
and
that.
I just
Yeah,
and that's
100%.
what we try and kind of infuse in him, the positivity, and looking at the things that he can do well, and stuff that he does. He actually personally likes doing, like Lego and maths and those kind of things, and be like, like this is the things that you can excel at, and building the confidence in him that way.
Yeah.
So that's what I would say.
Final thing I want to say to you guys, because everyone is saying, Trinity is saying, I think she may have had autism herself. She says, thank you all. Even at the age of 40, I'm still learning about myself from other people. And so she's really grateful for this conversation today. I wanted to say to all of you, before we go, and I can see big smile down there from you, Marcel, which is, did you all get the support you need, or is the support, I know we spoke about it right at the beginning, Teanne, you were saying, but are you all loving yourselves? because it must be a shocker to know that your child's got autism. Does that make sense? Now, when I say it, it's not, oh my God, my child's got autism. It's, my child's got autism. What now? And because your thought process is going to be very different to any of your other the siblings that that you've birthed. It's going to be very different, and it's called management. That's what I actually see. So my question to you guys, it's how do you look after yourself, able to look after your beautiful child with autism? How does that work? I'm throwing that. Who wants to start?
For once I can't speak.
Yeah, exactly.
The reason why.
Amazing, that one.
But the reason why is they come to you and they tell you some stuff like your child will not have friends, or something that you perceive as being said like that, or whatever. Oh, your child is autistic, and you think of Rain Man, and all of a sudden you're thinking of having quite a challenge ahead of you, but you don't have time to think about how do I love myself or something like that. You don't have time. Your phone is going to be full of all these websites to do with autism. You're going to be reading, like an autistic person. You're going to be super into it, right? And you're just going to be out there dealing with it. You're not going to be sitting around saying, "Oh, how do I love myself? How do I?" At some point in the day, they'll go to
not so much love yourself, but you've got to have energy. You've got to stay strong. When your mind is saying, come on, this is standing in my truth.
Yeah.
You've probably gone, why me? What happened? How did it happen to me? All of those, you have to say to yourself, I can't be beating myself up.
No,
I think,
does that make sense? You see where I'm coming from? Not exactly like, oh, I'm loving myself. It's,
no, I don't mean it like that.
Yeah.
What I mean is, like, I was so worried at the time of the diagnosis and in those periods of time. I was so worried about what if he was going to be feeling cool, like to ever even think about anything like that. I'm so worried about him, and now, fortunately for me or for him or whatever, he's in society. He's having a good time. He's having a good life. There are difficulties. Like in the morning, he's really weird with me, and I tell him, I don't know, and then the day goes on and he gets better. He's found his way of interacting, and we have to just keep searching for his way to interact with society and get what he wants out of society. He doesn't have to get what I want out of society. It's him. So I was thinking about him. I just wasn't thinking about me.
Okay.
If that makes any sense, you're worried about them, and if they're going to have a life that has some meaning, and you have to put away your meanings or the things that you think are good, or the things that you think are what your child should. We're all talking about autism here, but some people, they have autistic children that literally stab themselves, bang their heads against the wall, because they can't feel nerves in the same that we do, so they're trying to actually feel something physically. I often think about those people, which is why I was saying to you, Valerie, about coming onto this show. I'm worried about, because I always talk a lot, and I'm worried about sharing my experiences, and other people thinking, well, hold on a sec, you're not dealing with nothing. You're dealing with nothing, because my son, my daughter stabs themselves regularly.
Right.
Something like that.
Here. So speak it into existence.
So that's what I was feeling. And when I got, don't get me wrong, I was so frustrated. I was so stressed. I was crying ridiculously all the time, thinking, oh, my son won't have friends. But when I used to see my son in the playground and he didn't want no friends, I was kind of cool, because he didn't want any friends. And when he wanted friends, he got some friends.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Because I know and you have kept it real. It's not about mamby-pamby, let's make this all pretty. There's other people that need to be educated about it.
Yeah,
it's not like we've got somewhere that we can, unless you go to the autism organization or the society or read up about it, there's not, I'm not saying there's no forum for it, but it should be openly that we could speak about this and not feel that you're in a group and a class to yourself,
Yeah,
because
sure.
it's everybody is human. As you just said, I love the fact that you shared that, was the fact that you're saying that, you know, there's days that you cried. You were worried about your
Oh, a
child.
lot,
You didn't
a
know where
lot.
you lost. That's the question I'm asking. It's how did you deal with it? It's the reality of, oh my God, I don't want my child to be like this. I don't want my child to feel this way. You know, I'm a grandparent. I hope to God that, you know, look, I'm sitting here and I'm already thinking, oh, I've got Charlotte, and oh, I'm going to have to be looking at her and making sure that, oh, does she speak well? Oh my God. And there's little things that you've already spoken about that I'm already identifying. But she doesn't have it, but there's similarities because that's what children are. So it's very difficult, as you all just said, to diagnose autism from ADHD
Yeah.
or a difficult child in the age of 2 years old. So I applaud Blue, you know, who has gone through it, and you know, her child is 13 without a diagnosis. I applaud. I applaud Marcel, because you know I look up to you for everything. You know, for the
I'm
most of
sorry.
the
I'd much prefer if she did get a diagnosis if she can,
Yeah,
because getting the
definitely.
support, you know, getting the support is really essential.
That's right. Do you hear that, Blue? Get the
Yeah,
diagnosis. So
yeah.
she said another. I'll come back to the other question that before we get out of here. So that's why I was saying, you know, how did you all feel? So I'm going to leave that last question just quickly from Gill. How are you? You know, what is it? How you felt? You're the grandmother. Give it to me from your point of view.
So I was more concerned. Obviously, this happened a long time before lockdown. I was noticing that he wasn't communicating, and I was very aware that going to my daughter, and which I wouldn't have done, but putting that in her path and saying, I think there's something wrong with your son, blah, blah, blah. So I talked to my son about it, and we were looking at ways how we could approach my daughter and her husband without upsetting them, because it's really difficult. It's, you don't want to be an overbearing grandparent. You don't want to come over as taking charge. You don't want to come over as knowing it all, because you certainly don't. But you just want to support, and you just want everything to be okay. But if it isn't, you want to be there for them. And I remember one issue, the way I thought I could get round it was to say to my daughter, um, when you had your last health check, they didn't check his hearing. Maybe it could be a possibility that there could be something wrong with his hearing, and that's why he isn't speaking. And to be fair, my son-in-law yelled in my face, there is nothing wrong with him, blah, 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 blah. And I got the third degree from my son-in-law, and I get on really well with him. But I think it was just that situation where there's nothing wrong with my child. There can't be anything wrong with my child. That was really difficult for me to take, because I wasn't being a know-it-all. I just wanted to support. And from there, you know, the episode with the nursery nurse teacher, I think that was a really bad approach on her behalf, but maybe it was the jolt that was needed, because since then it's been fast forward with, there needs to be something in place. There is a reason why he's not communicating, and it's snowballed. And as I say, he's going to mainstream school in September with the support that he needs. But I just, from my point of view, I don't interfere. I'm there if I'm needed. If I look after him, I do it to the very best of my ability, which I'm sure every grandparent would do. And I try my hardest, as does my son as well, to support my daughter if ever she needs to talk, if ever she needs a shoulder to cry on. It's just being there to say, well, you know, we can talk, even if it just is, you know, that you can sound off, you can tell me what you want to tell me, and then the next day everything's okay. It's just being there to support, and obviously being a support bubble for my grandson.
Lovely. Teanne, you know, same question to yourself. Same question to yourself. Can you hear me, my darling? Oh, you're just about hear you now.
Question, I think it's just we're going
Oh,
in and
right,
out a bit.
okay. I was saying to you, you know, when you get that diagnosis, that remember we were talking about
Yes.
the beauty, yeah.
Yeah. So I guess for me personally, I kind of went into kind of fighting mode. Like I knew this was going to be a battle, like being a parent with a special needs child. My kind of feelings about it kind of took a back seat, to be honest. Not until maybe I don't know. It kind of came out in different ways through the frustration of not getting the school that we wanted. That's when kind of like, you know, the tears came, and just the sheer frustration of just feeling that this is an uphill struggle and having to constantly fight and advocate on behalf of your child. I think when the diagnosis was given, like for me and my husband, it was like, well, yeah, we kind of knew that already. We kind of accepted that. And I think a big part of it is having that acceptance. And I think some parents do find that difficult, that part of accepting that your child has different needs to others. But I think it was kind of like a thing where I was just more concentrated on how am I going to make sure that he navigates his way through life well and is accessing the support he needs. And now for me, like I just kind of see, like when I think back to when we were given the diagnosis, it was pretty much just a paperwork thing for me. It was just pretty much like it's on paper now. Do you know what I mean? It's like yeah. And I think speaking about it publicly is something that I've recently, like this is the first conversation I've had speaking about autism publicly, like because I was just so busy just getting on with life. So yeah, and actually, you know, just saying publicly, yeah, he has special needs, he's autistic. It's something that recently, like with you know, I've done personally, but you know, I just kind of see him as his own person, and I just kind of feel like he has so much to give, and it's just about how we can just unlock that potential. Like he is a great kid, and that's what kind of keeps me going, really. It's just like, you know, how can we unlock his potential?
I just think it's beautiful. To everybody that I'm just going to say, because I remember Marcel said he had to go in an hour, and I'm so glad he stuck it out to the bitter end.
I am. I was just going to that. It's because do you know what? I do really genuinely have to go.
No, I'm finishing now, so I'm just saying I'm so glad, really, that all three of you sharing your feelings, what you've been, you know, when I say been through, what you've gone through to embrace what is, you know, what autism really is. It's about understanding is what I'm taking away from today. And I'd like to hope that when those who watch it and, you know, loads of just what I love, thank you everyone in the chat room, is the amount of love hearts so that people are relating to you. I love it. I love that. Because, go on, baby, go on.
Sorry to interrupt. I feel, and this could just be me. You know, I'm realizing by watching the stream, I probably have, by watching myself in the stream, I probably have at least autistic traits or something like that. So, but I'm cool with it. I mean, it's all good. Like I said, it's all over my family. But I feel like for these conversations to be most helpful, we have to cover some of the ground in a bit more detail, and I think we should be doing it. I think maybe we should perhaps do it more often, because there's I'm still bursting with things that I want to say about particular issues on it, and I think that they might. I think that they're. Oh, sorry, excuse me. I think that there might be more more helpful than I thought in the beginning when I spoke to you earlier on in the week about it. Things about like getting a diagnosis, getting a Senko, how to work with perhaps eating, what is described as eating disorders or eating preferences, how we teach interaction, more about the speech therapy, because at that age, of those ages when you're dealing with it, between sort of 3, 7, 8, 9, or between 3 and 45, I don't know, there is particular things about it. And the reason why I think it's important now is because now I realize other people's experiences are really quite similar to mine. Like, and my son is doing, to me anyway, he's still autistic, but he's doing so well. He's doing so well. And I really believe it's because of the support that he got, which is why I'm so pro-diagnosis. And I'm not saying everybody's son can do what Javi does. They're going to be doing their own thing, and they're going to be reaching their own milestones. They're going to be reaching, you know, their own potentials, you know. But now that I'm thinking about it, I mean, I'm starting to think that with the right interventions, which is what I really want to fight for, with the right interventions, other people's children will be doing better. I don't like to hear about the stories of people going to jail or you know, my nephew, this is something I wanted to say earlier, I didn't get a chance. My nephew has been kicked out of 2 schools. At one of the schools, and this is really bad considering it was a religious school, they called him a devil child. These are things that we have to go over in more detail. I mean, you're in a Christian school and they call you a devil child. That's pretty big. Obviously, they apologize afterwards and all that. My dad went down to school, bloody, blah, and all this kind of thing. But that should never happen in the first place.
So now that's why we can relate to what Lulu was saying, Marcel.
Yeah.
With her 24-year-old. So
it's horrible what she's been through.
Yeah, I'm going to put this to you guys then, because I feel that I could sit here and drag so much. There's loads of questions I'd love to throw in because of what's been said, especially in the chat room, and I've different other chat room that you can't see. But Blue says to thank you all so much. Trinity says family had to learn, holds on to her nephew, was difficult, but so he did. Oh God, another member in her family. This is another lady, Trinity. And so she had to hold on to one of her nephews because it was difficult. So they did that so that he didn't harm himself. And he was a teenager, which was really scary. And she said she felt bad doing it because she didn't understand. I know, Teanne, that, you know, your grandson, Bruce, is only like 5, Teanne's is 9, yours is 14. But it doesn't, by the sounds of it, it doesn't matter what the age group is. It's just that there's a lot to identify with. So I'm going to put it to you guys, and you don't have to. We can have other people that join in, but I think we can convene again in a couple of a month's time, a couple of months' time. Let's have this conversation down the line. Let's see where you know Doreen is at. Let's see where Bruce is at. Bring something else to the table, Marcel. I know you're a great advocate, you know, for autism. I know that you've got a wealth of knowledge, you know, and we probably can get. You know, if you guys want to,
I think we should.
100%.
Yeah.
You know, I will do the same thing again. I'll put the invitation out. I'll bring Lulu on. I'll actually try to get you on if possible as well.
Yeah.
And we make it a forum. So it's a safe place for everyone to talk. And the more knowledge is shared, the more understanding you're going to have as your children grow up. That I am putting that to you. I'm not forcing you. Oh my God, I really feel emotional about it. I've loved this show. I feel for once I belong and had people that got me. Got you, girl. We got you. We got you, Lulu. We got you.
Val, hold this thought. Maybe when I cross the finishing line of the marathon for autism in October, maybe we should all have a group hug at the end.
Yeah, we should.
Can you tell before we go? I know we've got to get out of here. So please, Jill, can you let people know what you're doing in October? I knew there was something that was missing.
Yeah, I signed up for the National Autistic Society a couple of years ago just to get more of a knowledge of autism. and there was a thing about the London Marathon. So I wrote about me and my grandson Bruce and the relationship I had with him. And I got offered to run in the London Marathon in October to raise money for autism. So,
Wow.
guys, you know, if we keep this forum going, I might meet you someday.
Yeah.
Amazing. Amazing.
We
As
need
I
to
said,
sponsor you.
yeah, and you know, listen, that's another thing we're going to hold each other to.
Yeah.
As I said, I am totally up for it. And you've got to remember, again, we're all coming out of lockdown. At the moment, everyone feels so comfortable in their home. We're all going to want to go off and do different things. For me, my platform is always going to be there. My platform is always going to be there. This wasn't just done because we're in lockdown. It's something that I constantly bring different voices to the table. So I will hold you to this. So if you know, it's about getting your schedules together. A couple of months start, you know, if we do this, say end of May, we'll come back, or let's come into June, summer. We actually could do it there. I don't know where everyone's dynamics, and I'm not sure. Jill, you're not in London, are you?
No, but you know, you could contact me. You've got my contact details. I'm
Yeah,
up for
but
this.
I'm thinking that because I know you do come up to London, maybe
Yeah, I
we could do
do.
it the day that when you do come up to London,
Yeah,
we run the forum where we're all in the same room together. Because by then, do you know what I'm saying? 'Cause I've got a
yeah,
nice safe
Yeah.
space where we could actually be all in the room together. It's absolutely being filmed. It will go live, and then you've got the different dynamics, if that makes
yeah,
sense. If
cool.
Marcel's up for it, if
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know
yeah.
Jill's up for
Yeah,
it,
Yeah,
and
definitely.
definitely.
yeah, and we can definitely get Lulu in, and probably if Trinity wants to come to London. But there's a few people absolutely
Oh,
just going on off in the chat rooms. So we will come back together. This is the team at the moment, and we can have any extra addition. So I'm going to hold you guys to it. But whilst I'm here, before we get off air, I just want to bow down to you all. Val is bowing, saying I'm so not worthy. Today has been tremendous learning
Francis,
curve. Go on, babe. What you going to say, my darling? Ross, can you hear me? Oh God, please don't tell me you've gone. Well,
Val, I
I'm going
just want to say thanks for putting it together.
to. It's absolutely
Yeah,
my pleasure.
it's been
Absolute.
amazing.
Thank,
Yeah.
well, thank you, Tia, because I know you were all a bit nervous about it. So thank you
I
so much.
was, yeah.
Maybe, yeah. Hopefully, this is the start of something new. Let's, Louise, you're absolutely. Thank you, Val, and thank you, guests. Yes. Um, anything you want to say to the group? Please tell everyone in the chat rooms good night. God bless them. Go ahead, guys. Just give a parting word on my behalf. Thank you.
Good night and stay strong because you can do it.
Teanne?
Yeah, just thank you so much for tuning in, and just remember, you know, these amazing children, they're different, but they're not less. So different, not less.
Love that. Oh, I've lost my Marcel. I'm going to have to call him back when I get to when the show is over. Ladies, stay strong. And all said, please give your wonderful grandchild and your son big hugs to Valerie,
Valerie.
Auntie Val. You know, I'm now Auntie Val. Well, I was
Yeah.
always Auntie Val, actually. Big loves and hugs. I'm really, really sorry. Well, the Wi-Fi cut out and it's not on my room. No, Marcel, don't you worry. I'll be calling you in a hot second. Thank you guys again. Bless you all. Take care,
Thank
and I'll speak
you.
to you on the flip side. Good
Bye.
night. God bless. Oh, let's see where we're at. Here we go. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much, so much, so much, so much for tuning in. It's not the end. It's not the end of living with autism. I'm going to go and have myself a juice to try and lose the couple of pounds of weight that I seem to have gathered over the last month so that I can get out of lockdown and feel good about myself. I hope you're going to do the same too. What was I going to say to you now? Well, we're out of here. Tune in tomorrow night. I've got the American comedian, would you believe it, Trav Q. He's absolutely flipping hilarious. No, Debbie, thank you. Thank you to everyone's input in the chat room. Everyone, total love coming at you. This is going to be held again in a couple of months. We will let you know beforehand so you can tell other people to come and join in. We'll put We'll try. Here's Marcel. Marcel,
Okay, I had a router
yay!
issue. I
Everyone
did
stand
text you.
up.
Sorry.
That's okay, my darling. Please, can you give a parting word? We've got 3 minutes. Take us out of here.
I don't know what to say. I mean, I think I'm just going to reiterate that it's important to get diagnosis. I mean, from my own anecdotal evidence, I would say it's important that you're not thinking about what you want for your child. You're kind of more thinking about what's good for your child or what your child wants. Like I heard a lot of stories about people with sort of perhaps what we might describe as language disorders. Um, Have you had language disorders? We had loads and loads and loads of language language therapy, and now he speaks completely and utterly normally. I don't know I think again, what the other guest was saying was about what's autism and what's just their personality. That's a really, that's a thing that we really need to understand. I honestly don't know what to say as a sort of like a parting thing, but definitely we need I think we should have the stream again and bring other people on as well, because it's a spectrum, and so people's experiences are different. But I think if we could help navigate some of those experiences, it would sort of like maximize the potential of this discussion.
It was a wonderful show, I swear to God. It was just great to have you and Teanne and Gill, and I'm glad that you were able to say yes. Let's do this again.
I think we should. I think
Yeah,
it's important to do it again.
we'll definitely do that. What we'll do is I'll coordinate with um, Gill so that we have her in London, and we'll have it from a live studio as
Yeah,
opposed to
sure.
separate, just to give a different edge to it. And with a phone in. So I've got, I'll get that set up. We'll get the next date, get it out, and have everyone back.
I mean, I don't know how you feel about it. But if we do it as a sort of more continual thing, I don't know how you'd feel about,
Oh, I'm
perhaps,
down with it. I'm down with it. The platform is there.
but perhaps we should have, like, Javi knows what it's like to be autistic. He's autistic and he can articulate himself well.
Would
Maybe
you be happy if you brought him on?
if he was happy, I haven't put it to him, but if he's happy with it, he might not be happy with it. He might just want to play FIFA and carry on drilling. They ute them, innit? You know what I mean? Like, it is what it is. But if he wants to articulate himself, that might be beneficial.
Okay.
We're
still live. I just want to say to you, Marcel, thank you so much.
That's all right, Val. Thank you for inviting me. Listen, I really need to go. I'm really like taking liberties.
No, I know you do. And I just want to say thank you to everyone that's still watching with us. Good night and God bless them. Marcel, I catch you on the flip side. It's been a wonderful show. The energy has been amazing tonight.
Oh, perfect.
And,
excellent.
I look forward to next
thank you for inviting me. And if anything that was said was helpful, then that's just a wonderful thing.
Unfortunately, we had so many people in tears after this. I've had texts already saying, "Oh my God, this was very emotional." So it wasn't down to me; it was down to the wonderful people that joined us today with yourself, Teanne, and Gill. So
brilliant, amazing.
May that continue.
Amazing. Excellent. Well, listen, I've really taken leave. I've really got to go.
Night,
So
God
you
bless.
take care, Val.
Yeah.
Bye. Take care. I don't know how to switch this off. What do I do?
Okay, I'll switch you off. Don't you worry. Good night. God bless you.
Bye.
Good night, everybody. We've reached 2 hours. We've got to get out of here. Thank you, Debbie. Thank you to everyone in the chat room. Thank you, Blue. And we're going to be convening again in about a month and a half's time on the same subject. Hopefully, you will join and be part of the chat, Living with Autism. Take care, everybody. Good night.